Welcome back everybody to our intermediate and advanced Civil 3D video training series. In the previous video we had taken a look at our parts list and we created a parts list for, specifically in my case, the city of Calgary here. We added some PVC pipes, we added some concrete pipes, we also added in our null structures, our manhole, and our catch basin. As I said previously, setting one up for the sanitary is essentially the same. You just have different parts, varying parts. And this next video, we're going to take a look at creating an actual pipe network. Now I placed a survey file that can be downloaded. Link is in the description. And you can import that survey file as a PENZD file. Coordinate system at this point doesn't matter. And create a surface of it. I have mine contour set for 10 meter and 2 meter intervals, and you should have something similar to what it looks like on my screen here. So download those points, insert them, or continue on in your own project. It's up to you what you want to use. I'm going to quickly freeze my points here, and it looks like I have them on the incorrect layer, just to get them off my screen. Alright, so before we begin our pipe networks, as I said previously, we need to have our pipe network set up, we need a parts list, we need our pipes, we need styles, we need our rule sets, we need our label styles, along with our structure, styles, rule sets, and label styles. All this needs to be set up beforehand so it could be tagged on the actual object that we're drawing when we're drawing it. Piecemealing and mishmashing this together, drawing some pipes, doing some styles, drawing some more pipes, drawing some styles, creating some rules, is gonna be a headache for you because we want everything set up so it's actually tagged on the actual object when we draw it. So when I draw a pipe, I want it to be labeled with the correct rule. I want it to be labeled with the correct label style. I want the structure to pick up the correct properties. So when we're making these things, we don't want to have to go back and forth and update a lot of things here in order to draw our pipes. So to move on with creating a pipe network, I'm under the Prospector tab, and I'm going to expand pipe networks, and we see here we have networks and we have interference checks. Nothing under each one of them yet. So I'm going to right click on pipe networks, not the pipe networks here, the actual networks. And I have a couple options. I can create pipe network by layout, so I tend to draw them by hand. I want to control where they go. I don't want to draw them from a polyline or other related object. I want to actually draw the pipes in myself and not have Civil 3D automatically do it for me. So I'm going to choose Create Pipe Network by Layout, and it's going to pop up a dialog box, and I'm just going to name it Storm Network. I'm going to choose my network parts list. Go ahead and take a look at the layers if you wish to see where they're all going. Now, surface name and alignment name, obviously we don't have alignments in this drawing, so I can't set that up, but if I want these pipes to automatically read off a specific surface, or I want these pipes to read off an alignment as I'm drawing them, set this up from the get-go. Now, usually we'll be using design ground. However, I haven't created a design ground. I'm just going to use the existing ground here and draw a couple pipes and draw a couple structures and call it a day. Now my structure label style, how do I want these to display? What kind of labels do I want? These are changeable afterwards, but this is more of the default style that's going to be applied when you add the object in. Also, if you ever select a pipe and right click add label, that will be this style here. This is all changeable, but it's a little bit of can be a headache trying to update everything. So I'm just going to choose all info plan labels, and my pipe label style, I'm going to go pipe label plan storm, and we'll see what options we're given when we draw them in. So I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to pop up a dialog box, and I can go ahead and start drawing pipes and manholes and structures right now. However, I don't want to just yet because not all of the settings have been set up. So I'm going to ignore what the command line says. I'm going to come into my network layout tools and click on the pipe network properties dialog box. So this is where you can change some of your default styles, some of your default settings that you set up in the previous dialog box, and also moving forward, if you want to change the default label, you can come into this pipe network properties as well. Utility type, drainage, sanitary, this will be our drainage network. Layout settings, as I said before, this is what we set up in the previous dialog box. This is how Civil 3D is going to name the pipes as it draws them in. So just pipe dash, in my case, next counter. Yours could be something slightly different. Structure dash next counter. I tend to rename these as I'm going along, and I will rename everything at the end of a project just so it's consistent. I don't want to see structure dash 1, structure dash 2. I'd rather see storm manhole dash 1. Now moving on to the profile tab. These defaults were not set up in the previous dialog box, so this is where we'll need to do them. Now, if I draw these, if I start drawing pipes without setting this dialog box up, when I go to add them into my profile, they will not have a default label style attached to them. When we right click and add labels, nothing will appear. So I'm going to choose name, structure label profile, pipe label profile storm. And again, all these labels were brought in from a previous template I had. I'm sure you or your company has the correct label styles to use. If you have a crossing pipe style, go ahead and add that as well. The layer they're going to be placed on in profiles. Now under the section view, there's only one option to set up here, and the statistics tab. Now this will be essentially blank right now because there's nothing in our pipe network. It's right now all it's referencing is the existing ground. So just double check everything in here to make sure everything's set up the way you want it and the way that makes sense, because if it's not, things will not appear properly when you go to draw them. I'm going to hit OK and go back to the dialog box. Now the next two buttons are to set up a surface, select a surface. We can change the surface on the fly as we're drawing along. So say we wanted to model some to existing ground here, some to existing ground here, some to design ground here. Maybe we have to match a road surface over here. We can change the surface as we are drawing and it will target that brand new selected surface. It will not cancel the command as you're drawing it. It will allow the command to continue as if you're drawing a polyline and you're changing settings while you're drawing the polyline. However, I've only got one surface, so we'll leave it as existing ground. The next button is to set up an alignment. Select an alignment. Now, I don't have any alignments in my drawing. However, if you're designing a subdivision and you have 5 or 6 or 7 alignments, we want to put our pipes and manhole structures, catch basins on the, I'm going to say the closest relative alignment in the road so that they can easily be staked out. The fourth button over is our parts list. Now we can come in here and choose a different parts list as we're drawing. So maybe we're going from one city's specifications to another city's specifications, and they use slightly different manufacturers. We can go ahead and change that as we're drawing when we get into the new stuff. However, I tend to just leave it on the one as I'm only really working in one location. These two dialog boxes where we have null structure currently and 299 millimeter PVC pipe, this is where we modify the parts that we're going to be drawn. Now I'll usually start off with our manholes, whether it be an existing manhole or a proposed design manhole. I tend to draw these all as a long string, but I tend to do it manually, as we're going to see here in a moment. We also have in this list our rectangular junction structure NFSI. So if we think back to the parts list in the previous video where we went into the settings tab, this list mimics the list we set up in that settings tab. So this is why you don't select the add all everything. And we'll have 5,000 options in this list. You'll be scrolling forever trying to find it. This also mimics the pipes that we set up. So we have our PVC pipe and we have our concrete pipe down below. So whatever we set up in our parts list is what we're given in here. We want to draw them in by structure insertion point. Can't change that anyways. The next button over is how we start drawing our pipes themselves. So we have pipes and structures. We can draw pipes and structures. We can draw pipes only, or we can draw structures only. So you can go in and place all your needed manholes, and then you can connect them together with pipes only. We could draw, like I said, pipes and structures together. The simplest way I would probably think is structures only, because we know where our tie-in is going to be. We know where the highest end of our sewer system is going to be. So we can draw those in, and then we can place in the needed pipes in the correct flow direction. The next button over is to toggle upslope or downslope. So how are we drawing these? Are we drawing them upslope or by default downslope? So if we look at the picture, we have the pipe with the arrow pointing to the lower part. If we toggle it, the pipe is now pointing the arrow to the upper part. So are you starting off at the bottom of your sewer system, or are you starting at the top of your sewer system? The next button over is to delete a pipe network object. So you can select that, you can click on the object you want to delete, and Civil 3D will get rid of it. We have a pipe network vista, which will be empty right now because we don't have anything added. And then we have an undo button at the very end. So now that we've checked and confirmed everything, let's go ahead and start drawing some of our pipe networks. Now I'm going to toggle this back to downslope, so I want it to slope from the high point to the low point. And I'm just going to pick some random spots here to draw my pipes in. I'm going to make sure I violate at least one of the rules so we can take a look at how that looks. Not very intuitive in Civil 3D, but it does give you a warning that something is wrong. So I'm going to click on the drop down here. I'm going to draw pipes and structures. I'm just going to string them together for this. It's not a real project. I'm just practicing here. And I'm going to start roughly in the center of this oval shaped contour on the top right hand side. So read in the command line, specify the structure insertion point. I'm going to select here. And if we zoom in on it, we see that Civil 3D has placed a manhole here. And there's a green line coming out of it. It's labeled as structure 1, and we have an elevation, we have an easting, a northing, and a sump. The pipe is not going to show up in this list until I start drawing it in. So I'm going to make sure to violate my 185 meter maximum rule and go with, we'll do 360. So I'll select somewhere over by this next circular shape contour. Now the labels haven't updated because I haven't finished the command yet. However, I'm going to carry along and I'm going to look at the distance that is in my dynamic input window there, and I'm going to keep it roughly 185. So that's not giving me a warning. And I'm going to place in 5 or 6 manholes just so we have some in here we can take a look at. And again, if they're not exactly where mine are, that in and of itself is okay. So I'll place in 6 manholes. Now once I hit enter, we see that this label has now updated to have a northwest invert. We have a structure 2 here with 2 inverts on the pipe as well. So we have a southeast invert and a west invert. Now it's always a good practice to put the flow direction in these pipe labels. So I'm going to quickly edit this pipe label, my all info plan labels, to include the flow direction under all pipes. And I'm going to select connected pipe flow direction, uppercase, which I thought we had already added this, but I guess not. And I'll hit OK, OK, OK. And we have a southeast in, a west out, also mimicked by my arrow label here that is pointing into the structure themselves. So we have just a quick pipe network drawn here. We have our storm network. We started off in the lower right and we had worked our way to the upper left. Now I didn't show you how to change pipe sizes when you're drawing it, as at this point we probably don't know what the sizes are going to be. We haven't done any stormwater calculations, any stormwater sizing. But if you knew all that information, if you knew where everything was flowing, obviously the upper pipe would be one of the smaller ones, and it would be a 299 diameter. Now this bug happens quite often where these boxes will appear to blank themselves out, but just reselect the sizes you want. Now, if you knew all that storm sizing by hand, I'm going to quickly draw some more pipes and structures. I will end up deleting these, but I'll show you what we can do as we go along. So if I place them in, and say my next pipe is a 450, and then we have more flow coming in, we'll have a 675, and we go 925. We can see that Civil 3D has drawn them in. So Storm 917, we have a 669, a 448, and yes, I understand the sizes are weird, but that's what we've actually drawn in to the program itself. So we can change sizes as we go along while we're in the command. We can add in rectangular, our catch basins. So I'm going to select a catch basin. I'm going to pick my 300 diameter pipe. And I'm going to add a catch basin in just into my structure 2 here. So I'm going to draw pipes and structures. And again, it's starting off where the catch basin is going to be located. And we'll place it over here. And we're getting a lot of labels here, so I'm going to turn them off here in a moment. But I wanted to show some glyphs that appear when we hover over objects. So if I wanted to attach this pipe to another pipe, we see here 2 little squares with lines coming out of it. This will break the pipe and insert a structure in the middle. It won't check any rules at that new structure. It can't apply the rules. We would have to go in and manually fix it after, so this will break the pipe and insert a manhole. If I hover over the manhole itself, we see a slightly different glyph that is a circle with 4 lines coming out of it and a grip in, or a node on the center of the manhole. What this means is that it will attach directly to the manhole itself. So I am going to select that, and I'm going to click and get even more labels that I'm going to then change my drawing scale so we can actually see our way around and adjust some of these out of the way. Now the objects themselves are way bigger than the labels themselves. I'm going to go and actually fix this style here as it looks like it got overwritten from my default one, but that is a quick video on how to quickly draw in some pipe networks. In the next video, we're going to take a look at the inverts, how to check the inverts, how to check the sizes, how to check the slopes, make changes, make edits, anything that we need to do when it comes to our pipe networks.